Hello and welcome to English Talk, the podcast for people who feel insecure speaking English as a non-native at work. Join me and my guests as we chat about the challenges of speaking up in English when you're not only a native speaker but also a bit of an introvert. This week I'm joined by Tamas Sohajda. Tamas works mainly with innovators in the pharmaceutics, cosmetic or nutraceutical sector, helping them implement psychodextrin technology into their products. He's very fond of science communication, free education, online training, and using social media to distribute knowledge. So, Tamas, thank you so much for joining me today. It's a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks a lot for inviting me. It's my pleasure too.
So, Tamas, I got in contact with you because I read a post of yours on LinkedIn, and it starts, "Most scientists I know stay silent on LinkedIn, and honestly, that worries me." And that worries me as well. So I thought, let's invite you on and we can discuss what it is that's worrying and what needs to happen. So tell me about your thoughts behind that post.
So that's many aspects, I think, many angles to that question. So I've been, I don't know, practicing scientist myself during my PhD and later years, and I know that these folks, researchers, add a tremendous amount of work to create their research, to invent something meaningful with a vision in their mind. And typically, especially in academia, the final outcome, the final goal is to publish a paper. So you add hundreds, thousands of hours of work to publish a paper, which in itself is for me, I don't know, an interesting final goal. But I think when you have that in mind, that okay, my final goal is the paper, I guess everyone's own desire is that paper to be read. So you created the science because you think it's important, with some aspect, not necessarily world-changing importance, but certainly you have a goal with it, a bigger vision behind. And if you invested hundreds of hours to create the paper and then stop, it seems a bit meaningless, because then the extra effort that you should give to give that paper more publicity is very minimal. So if you leave that on the publisher website, it's very uh, stochastic. Who would read that? Maybe, I don't know, a few dozens of like-minded researchers, but it certainly doesn't reach a wider audience. But if you change your mind a bit and try to take on a new coat and be willing to put yourself out there, you can really bring your message and your vision and your bigger ideas to a much wider public. So that is one aspect of it. But that's more from the researcher's point of view. I think the bigger problem here globally is that science is very complicated to lay people. So
Yeah.
so it's even the basic science is very complicated. I mean, not not necessarily the very deep astrophysics, the topics that I don't understand either. But I don't know, very basic science, how the world works, how
Yeah.
biology works. Those are also very difficult topics which scientists understand. And I truly believe that if you understand it in detail like a scientist, you can also explain it much better to lay people compared to when they have to read on their own, and then it becomes very complicated reading a paper. But if someone sits down with you, can explain probably in 10 sentences what is it about, can translate to your language. And what I really meant by that post is that scientists are capable usually to translate that to the language of lay people, and that's what I'm lacking, and that's causing a lot of trouble, especially troubles that we have seen with vaccines and COVID and
Yeah.
stuff like that, where true, simple, but real explanation. I mean, uh, an honest, transparent explanation
Yeah.
of how things work would be very necessary. And that's usually the job, in my opinion, that could be the job of scientists because they understand, they can explain. So why not do it? So that's the key message from a
Yeah.
bigger perspective here.
Because you said in that post, and I'm reading here, that if we don't explain what's behind the science, somebody else will, and they don't usually get it right. And I think that's just what you're saying there, that the scientists have the knowledge. So is it that there's a sort of obligation on the scientist's part to
We
be
we could
better?
say,
Or,
yeah, a moral obligation. Obligation is maybe not the best word, but it certainly would make a bigger impact. So this is what I recall a memory, and that is what created very strong feelings within me. It was the start of the COVID, and there was this podcast, and no one really understood, or at least it was not, we were not deep into COVID, it was still very new. And two people were on the show with opposing opinions. There was a high-ranking scientist, a virology expert,
mm,
and the other guy was also with a scientific background. But his claims were not scientifically well
mm,
founded. So we had these two opposing fields. There was one guy, let's call it the real scientist,
mm,
who based all his talk on science, but couldn't really communicate it well.
mhm.
So he used very
Okay.
complicated sentences. His speech was not simple. It didn't have the strength, the persuasive power, whatever. And the other guy was an excellent communicator.
Yeah.
What he was talking was full of blocks, but still he communicated it very well. And at the end of the conversation, uh, they checked, okay, what is the public's feedback? And it was completely shifted towards
Yeah.
the message of the good communicator. Even
Yeah.
if you listen to it as a scientist, you would know that it's not true. But
Yeah.
convincing people with good communication is not difficult, because they don't understand, they don't know, and challenging someone who is very persuasive is a lot of effort,
Yeah.
and people usually don't do it. So that's why I would say that speaking up more science, more important science would be extremely important so
Yeah.
that we can avoid these hysterical moments saying that vaccines cause autism and stuff like that uh, have been proven wrong millions of
Mm,
times, but people are still afraid of
yeah.
them because, okay, fear is natural, but that's where the importance of good science communication
Yeah.
comes in.
I mean, science communication is quite a big word. I think it's more big now in the last few years. It's more of like a key word than it was in the past. And storytelling in science is a big thing. And I find this interesting because one of the reasons I work predominantly with scientists, with confident speaking, is because I noticed, I used to teach. My background was in radiotherapy, and through radiotherapy, I went into teaching English, and because of my background, ended up in a lot of pharma and biotech companies.
Uh,
And what I noticed was a lot of the students I had coming to me would have actually really good English once they got warmed up, but they would go into meetings and then say, "Oh, I can't speak." They would speak to me, but not have the confidence to go into a meeting and speak up in a meeting. And the students who came back time and time again were the introverts. It was nothing to do with language level. it was that element of introvert, extrovert. And I have this fear that there's a lot of introverted scientists. And I think it's a really good fit because the introverts are very happy on their own in their nice quiet lab. I guess labs can be noisy as well, but concentrating, doing the solo work, the thinking work. And when it comes to communicating that, that's not what they want to do. So I guess my question is it a problem? Do we need somebody in between to be the spokesperson? Or do the scientists have a sort of moral obligation in certain individuals to actually get over themselves and
I
communicate
see.
better?
Uh-huh. Well, that's a very good point. Also something that we experience in our company. So yeah, of course, introverts do not like to speak unless if they have a different opinion than the majority of the others. So in
Mm-hmm.
those cases, you really have to, I don't know, squeeze out information. What the tactic we usually use nowadays, by the way, and it's working pretty well, that introverts speak first, so they
Yeah.
don't get influenced by anyone else.
Okay.
So we listen to the silent and shy guys first, and then the big talkers can do the talking at the end. But okay, at least there is something. Um, so I think there's two distinct approaches here. How I believe, and this may not be true, but introverts, I think, if it comes to communicating on social media, I think the term of being introvert on social media is different than in real life. So I
Yeah.
think it's easier to share your opinion, post a comment about something, even if you are an introvert on social media. That's just my feeling, than in real life, because it's easier to write an email. You can think it through. You don't necessarily have to read the comments, whatever, but you can communicate your message without the necessity of confronting your opinion. Of course, I think there is a learning process here as well. So maybe this is a way that you can, I don't know, drive yourself a bit more into those conversations. But speaking up in public is something that's probably, of course, it can be learned to some extent, but you can't really force people to do that, because okay, something that I read usually, that some people are more afraid of speaking in public than about from desk. So I don't know if
Exactly.
it's
It's
true, but
fascinating,
yeah,
isn't
but
it?
I read this quote several times. Certainly, it's a very valid fear of people, and probably it could be improved to some extent, but I don't think that everyone has to be a good speaker or a good communicator. I think if you have an important message that should be shared, you should find a way. If it's not you, then someone in your team can learn the stuff and communicate. So it's the purpose should be bigger than your internal fears. If you don't want to do it, it's fine, but finding a way how to do it is probably possible even
Yeah.
for introverts.
Yeah. So it's the purpose. You spoke at the beginning about final goals and publishing papers, and again, that's written, and how that's a little bit meaningless if that is just the goal to write a paper. And it seems like this, what you're saying about having the team is, if you're an introvert or you have social anxiety, then it's a matter of using your team to, if you can't do it yourself, to find some way that you either can feel comfortable or somebody who is able to do that for you. Maybe that's the way.
Yes, I think that that should be completely possible. I mean, these usually the important findings, the important research always comes out of collaboration, and
Mm,
it's not a solo work. So you have the PI, you have the PhD students, yourself, collaborators at other universities, and you're absolutely right, Louise. I also think that the proportion of introverts within the academic research fields is probably higher than
mm,
the global average, but not all of them are
yeah,
introverts. So a lot of them are very good speakers, even in their young age. A lot of them are um, are I don't know, like to show themselves, are ambition, have ambition, stuff like that. So I think finding people to help your work make a bigger impact should have a way, irrespective of your being an introvert or not.
yeah. And you also mentioned that in social media that it should be easier, and that there is, and I've read this, I've used this statistic before, that fear of public speaking is higher than a fear of death. Which is crazy. But on the other hand, I think death is a little bit unrealistic. We don't actually think about our own death very often unless we're in a war zone or wherever. So therefore, we're more likely to encounter having to speak up in public. And public is relative. Public could be a meeting. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be on a stage to have stage fright. So maybe it's that rather than that we're all contemplating death. But whatever it is, it's still a big thing. And this social media, yes, a lot of us find it easier to write than stand on a stage. But I've been marketing for 2 or 3 years now, and I belong to an organization that helps people learn to market. And the overthinking and fear around publishing, posting on LinkedIn is crazy when you think that this is not Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, but just the overthinking and the fear. I mean, I felt it myself. First time I posted on LinkedIn, I needed a whole coaching session just to get over a fear of what do I say? How do I write a post? I got to press send, and then what happens? And of course, nothing happens. So if that's someone like me who has a drive, an impulse that I need to do this, a scientist or any other senior leader, for example, who doesn't have that drive, how it's intimidating.
Yes, I hear what you're saying, and it can be. I think most of the unknown is always intimidating. It's from my perspective, when I think about should we try new stuff, should I try new stuff, should I go out of the comfort zone, because that's what we're talking about. If that's something that you go out of your comfort zone into an unknown area, which is very fearful. Uh, I always think that there's gonna be a lot of problems anyway with something new. But new things can also bring new possibilities. If you're a researcher, you cannot just communicate what you're doing. It's a very good tool for networking, to establish new collaborations, future grants, whatever, which are possibilities. So there are a large bucket of problems and large ball of possibilities, and it's your choice which one you want to focus on, because you can say that, okay, problems are too much and I don't really want this, so I just leave it as it is and go do the next study. Fine. And things stay as they were before. Or you can say that, okay, I'll focus on the possibilities, do the bold move, hit the send button, and problems will come, but I will solve them. And you will solve them. So these problems seem much, much bigger when you imagine them, compared to what they actually become when you're there. Because okay, step by step you will do it anyway, and that's how you grow. So if if fear prevents you from going out of the comfort zone, I think it's probably uh, growth is very difficult or very limited. And I'm not saying that all the ideas that you try will be successful.
Mhm.
No, that's not the case. But not trying because of fear, for me, it's not the productive way to put it. And I understand that for many people, this fear is really uh, how to say it's very preventive or it blocks you completely.
Mm. Yeah,
I don't know. It's a process that you have to learn to handle
yeah,
because usually, again, these problems are in the, I don't know, just making up numbers, 90% of the cases, the problems that you envision do not even occur.
yeah,
And probably the remaining 10%, the problems are much smaller
yeah,
than you imagined
yeah.
them to be.
So basically, you're saying you need to get out of your own comfort zone to progress. So if somebody is overthinking or hesitating or not even considering posting their research on somewhere like LinkedIn, the impulse to get them on the platform and speaking about their science is they need to find the driving factor. They need to find what it is that's going to motivate them to be attractive enough so that the gains are enough to outweigh the discomfort. So if they think of it as, okay, what are the benefits here? It could be some sort of network for the future because we know that networking isn't linear. It's you can't find yourself out of a job and then suddenly decide to network. Networking is a is something it takes to over time, but you never know who you're talking to, who you will later in 10 or even 6 months' time or 10 years' time suddenly be a useful contact. So publishing on LinkedIn for a network and just getting known in a less stressful over time way. Publishing your research to get it into later publications, or there are many different possible positive outcomes from doing this.
Yes, yes, and what you said, that fragment of the sentence is very important. So posting on LinkedIn is less stressful eventually, I think, because
Yeah.
okay, LinkedIn is social media, but it's mainly for professionals. So whatever topic you post, the algorithm will design it so that will be read mainly by like-minded people who read posts like about topics like what you're posting about. So it's very unlikely to face people who have I don't know, strongly opposing opinion,
Mm.
but you can have, some suggestions. And I have seen posts like that also, even on Twitter, that okay, you encounter a problem and you post about it, and comments come that okay, we have seen same stuff. So this is a huge benefit of social media. How could you have done this in the past? So
Yeah.
you do not necessarily have to think about making publicity for your own work. It can be used also for troubleshooting and
Mm.
stuff like that. Uh, but basically on LinkedIn, who will comment, whom you will network with are professionals. Science communication can go beyond that because that could be also an argument. So if I want my science to be in fact impactful, I shouldn't post on LinkedIn because those are scientists. They basically already know. I mean,
Okay.
not necessarily the details, but
Mm.
conceptually they are already aware. So maybe I should post on TikTok and
Yeah.
Facebook so that okay, really to communicate with the
More
lay
reach.
people.
Yeah.
That is stressful. So on that fields, I can or X on those fields, I can imagine that you have some very harsh comments or disagreements with the statements that you are making. But probably that's not the level to start with. So um, when you get there, you can do it, but basically for to start with,
Mm.
LinkedIn is very good, and this kind of aggressive or negative behavior, I don't know if I've ever seen it. Probably I have, but it's
Yeah.
very rare on LinkedIn.
So I was going to say that because LinkedIn is quite a friendly place.
Yes.
Um, I know you're posting certainly every week. Are you on every day? I get a lot of your posts
Yeah,
on my
yeah,
feed. You're
yeah,
most
yeah.
days, yeah?
Every day, every day.
Yeah, okay. So in your experience, let's just set the record straight for anyone listening to this who's skeptical. I'm also on every day, and I've been on every day for about 2.5, 3 years now. Just between us two, I've never had anything really nasty. I might have people disagreeing with me, but always in a polite way. Have you had any negative feedback? Anything that really sort of,
So,
you're going to say yes
ex
now and blow my theory, aren't you?
no, no, no. I'm trying to think hard,
Yeah.
but extremely negative on science. No, I don't know. So I think you can get negative feedback. So if you publish your own science, or yeah, if you publish your own science or educate people, we also do a lot of education type of posts, not about our findings, but data that's available for the public. Those I don't really think receive negative topics or negative comments. When I have seen negative comments in the past are usually posts or articles when you question the validity of someone else's statement. So I
Okay.
don't know, there is a public on the market and or a product on the market, or there is a research paper out there, and you write an article challenging what is written
Okay.
in the paper, or what is wrong with the product. And
Mm.
even if it's scientifically based, of course, that's a sensitive spot
Yeah.
to the original author. So in those cases, I have seen some change of punches, but
And is this something you've posted yourself or just things that you've seen out
oh,
of what
once
you've
in a
posted?
while we also do it. So I don't know. Of course, we are very uh, specific to a certain research area, but it happened that okay, I don't know. Just for instance, there was a company on the market who advertised a product, and they made false claims on their website, which were scientifically proven to be false, but
Okay.
they still communicated to the wider public. And we wrote a post about that, okay, this is the claim, and this is what science says about the claim. Not going personal, fact to fact. But yeah, still, that is, of course, hurting someone's business interests
Yeah. Yeah.
or research interest, then you get into an argument, of course.
Yeah. So
But we
this
do
was,
that rarely. Yeah.
yeah, okay. So, but this was a challenging post where you saw a article, a something which was wrong and you challenged it. So if you're
Yes.
challenging, you're expecting some pushback.
I think
And
that's usually the typical reaction, even in
yeah,
in everyday conversations.
yeah.
So if you
Okay.
challenge, there is a pushback usually.
Okay. So anything that wasn't a direct challenge on your side, have you had any negative comeback from anything that
No,
wasn't a direct
not
challenge?
really. I think most of the feedbacks are positive or constructive,
Yeah.
suggesting, I don't know, improvements, further experiments,
Yeah.
what to do next. Even a lot of referrals come in
Mhm.
so that people,
Yeah.
can tag others to read that paper. Uh, of course, we are also running a business, but it's a
Mhm.
scientific business, and social media is a very good
Exactly.
generator
Yeah.
of interest for
Yeah.
collaborations, irrespective if it's academic research
Yeah.
or business. I would say it's if you do a business, it's almost a must
Yeah.
to do it, not necessarily on LinkedIn, but to communicate with the people that you like to engage with.
Mm.
That's probably the cheapest and most efficient way to do.
Exactly. So between it, so how many years have you been posting regularly on, or how long on LinkedIn,
So
roughly?
this severe addiction I have now, which is probably clinical, I don't know. It's probably in the past 2, 3 years, I would
Okay.
say. Before that, I was also active, but much less active, maybe one or two posts a week. So now I'm more doing it very systematically,
Yeah.
collecting what I would
Yeah.
like to talk about, newsletters, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So 2, 3 years, I would say.
Okay. So just for whoever's listening to this, we've both been on LinkedIn every day. We're both clinical for 2.5, 3 years, and neither of us, unless we've deliberately provoked a situation, neither of us have ever had somebody really negative
Exactly.
about what we're saying. Now, the other thing is that I think you also as well, I think we both do personal posts from time to time,
Yes,
something
I do. As well.
non-science, because I think this is the other overthinking that people go through when they have the idea, when they feel they should be on LinkedIn, is that it's not Facebook. You shouldn't post anything personal. And if I do post something personal, everybody will laugh at me and tell me that this isn't Facebook. Has anyone ever laughed in a cruel way? I think I laughed at one of your posts, but it was a friendly laugh.
No, I uh I think it's a good mix. So okay, in general, the answer is no. I probably I've seen okay one or two. I don't remember anyone saying okay, don't post things like this here. It's not Facebook, but I have maybe read such kind of comments from time to time, but very rare. But basically, I like to believe that okay, this is a professional platform that was invented for jobs
Mm-hmm.
and which grew way beyond that. Now it's mainly probably professional platforms, so a lot of science, but also jobs, also a lot of events and stuff like that, a lot of newsletters. But I think at the end of the day, we are still people, and I'm not posting about I don't know what I cooked for dinner, but when I do a personal post, I usually have a message
Yeah,
behind that I believe at least could be valuable for others too. And maybe it's I don't know about work-life balance and I
exactly.
do use a personal post for that, how I handle it and what were my challenges before. But that's a topic that is also affecting professional life. And then we are all human beings. We also have emotions.
Exactly.
There is nothing wrong with sharing those emotions. I'm not posting the exact same topics that I don't know we would post on Facebook because I understand that the audience is different. But if I think that okay, these are my personal thoughts, but I think the message is interesting and I would like to challenge what others think about that. I think
Yeah,
it's completely okay to do
yeah.
it
And I'm with you.
because there's a lot of posts about I don't know leadership and productivity and
Yeah,
stuff like that. So if that's okay, a personal post about productivity, how is that worse than a ChatGPT written post about productivity? I think the personal one is then better. So it's
yeah,
at least has a real
yeah.
lesson and the real life background.
And I think for anyone, the more we can make things personal and let people see the human side of us, you never know when that's gonna be a benefit, when that's gonna connect with someone. Whether you're looking for hire for you, if you're looking for hiring, if somebody's read your posts and then you have a vacancy and they've read your posts and say, I think Damash is a good guy. I think this is the sort of company that I could get behind. All of these, or for me, when I'm working with clients, if they hear my voice and they read about my other life, my motorbike and my other travels and my jet lag, they get to know who I am, that I'm not just some AI, some avatar who only does work. I think the human element is really
Yeah.
important today.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's that's where also, so you brought up hiring, and it's, I also think where our mindset is shifting towards hiring, because I don't know, if you asked me 15 years ago, I would say that, okay, when we were hiring someone, let's hire the one who is most skilled in what we do, and it will be a good pick. Today, when we hire, I would say that, well, science we can teach. If
Mm.
they're smart enough, we can teach them the
Yeah.
science, but we want to work with them for years. So is this a good guy?
Yeah.
I want to enjoy working with him, and not hating Mondays because we are in the same office. So let's
Yeah.
hire him if he's a good guy, and the science will teach. That's fine. It matters much more that you are a good fit
Yes.
to the team, and share the values and stuff like that. And those you learn via conversations, or, well, maybe to some extent before you meet them via
Yeah.
posts. Who knows?
Yeah. You get an idea of a person through their posts, and if it's empty, then I think you're lacking a skill. It's the industry at the moment. So many industries are suffering. So having a completely empty profile, I think it doesn't do you any favors in the future if someone's checking out what sort of person you are. I think being genuine, I think that's another thing. People feel it's a little bit false, but I think we can be genuine and show, without being too personal, show a side of who we are in our social media, professional social media profile.
Of course, yeah. Well, I think being false is probably true. I mean, most of what you see on social media, thinking about it in general, is not true, or it's paid ad, or whatever. But okay, on LinkedIn, I also think that it's more rare. I At least in my personal, when I see a personal story on LinkedIn, I tend to believe it much
Yeah.
more than if I saw the same on Instagram.
Yeah.
But maybe that's my fault. Uh, but at the end of the day, you choose how much you want to share. You choose how true you want
Yeah.
the message to be shared. Uh, like you said, I completely agree with you. You're not losing anything.
Yeah.
So what do you? There is nothing or very little on stake
Yeah.
if you do a a nice profile, and I think only you can gain.
Yeah. There's another thing you mentioned I want to come back to is you said something like roundabout as a guess, 90% of the things that we fear don't come true as an estimate,
Yeah.
maybe. And that ties in with some research that I found to do with mental chatter. So a lot of the work I do is involved in that mind chatter that we all have when we're not just for conscious thinking, but the subconscious worrying. And I found some data, I don't know how they got this data, but said that the average person has between 45,000 and 60,000 thoughts a day, which is a big difference between the two. And I guess it depends what sort of day you're having. But apparently, 75% of that is negative and 80% is repetitive. So thinking about the people who are thinking that it's going to go wrong and thinking negatively about whatever it is, whether it's speaking up in a meeting, whether it's posting, if if 75% is negative and 80% is repetitive, that's not helping. And I think this is a big block to why people don't speak up, whether it's in a meeting, on a stage, on a social media platform. And I just wondered what you think about
No,
that.
I completely agree, and I think we all see that in people, and it's not just a reason for not speaking up in social media. It's a much bigger problem. That's things that you keep you up at night, uh, things that leads that you cannot relax when you're family, because your brain is constantly, going rounds and rounds around a topic that's causing you stress, and that's what you're afraid of. And I think it's very difficult to change that, because there are a good deal of people who are wired that maybe we are as a race wired that
Mhm.
way, so that okay, we are always alert and try to avoid problems, and it's a survival instinct type kind
Mm.
of thing. Um, so when I am in these situations, it's not very often for me that I worry about something, but when I do, I always ask myself two questions. Typically, okay, after a time that
Mm.
I'm in these repetitive negative thoughts, and I realize that okay, something is bad is going on here. So the first question is, what is the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
Usually the worst is not that bad. But okay, really facing the brutal facts. What is the worst that can happen, and how do I handle that? And the second, which is really the mindset changing question, but it's very difficult to interpret into practice, is that is it helping me if I worry? So do I avoid the situation if I worry? Because if I don't, and there is little I can do about it, it's I'm just making myself miserable, but
Mm.
okay, I'm not making uh, any impact on the outcome. So okay, I can frustrate myself about something that's completely over my out of my control, but
Mm.
it's probably completely useless. Or if it's so frustrating for me, I should find a way how I can impact it, but the realization of that, or trying to face these two brutal
Yeah.
facts, I think it's very critical in the ring. And usually for me, it helps, and I can get over the worry part
Yeah.
this way. But it's, I would say even if you go this way, it takes years, maybe even decades to to practice. It's not something that okay, so I'm worrying, I should stop worrying, and it's gone.
And
It's of course not like that.
I think that the reason that doesn't work, because I think we've all heard that, and I think it makes so much sense to the logical brain, doesn't it? So we can go down the, okay, what's the worst that can happen? And then, which is a good way to know, to get that information. What is my subconscious trying to tell me? And I think that's the way I lead my clients as well. What's the worst? What is it you're worried about? Let's get it out there. Let's see, shine a torch. Let's see what it is we're really worried about. Fantastic. I think the second part is where people go wrong. And that's the logic of, is it helping? Because that doesn't take us anywhere. Because then we're in between the logical mind and the subconscious mind. And the logical mind can say, no, it's not helping, but I'm still freaking out. And that just makes it worse, because then you end up with guilt and shame that I'm freaking out about this and I know I shouldn't be. And then often, particularly in senior leaders, and I've got all this experience. I'm at this age, I should know better and I can't handle it. And I've been doing it for decades and all that. So, what I work with my clients is, rather than saying, is it helpful? Because we know it's not, is just saying thank you. If this is part of our subconscious, and we say, what's the worst that can happen? Okay, I could, um, if I'm speaking, I could forget all my words and go red, and it'd be hugely embarrassing. Is just to say inwardly, okay, thank you for the message.
I
Yes,
really
that
really
would
love that.
be really embarrassing. You're completely right. That would be embarrassing. And it's fascinating that when we have that conversation with ourselves, a bit like a child, I think you've got a child, because I remember you took some time out. Three, oh,
Yeah.
you've got a lot of patience. Uh, is it, well, if you've
Less
got a child,
patience since I have them.
if
Or
you've
at
got a
least it's more
child,
more try more challenge the patience.
when a child starts pulling at your sleeve, if you ignore it or say it's not helpful, they scream louder. But if your mental thoughts are, if if the worries are saying you're going to mess this up, you're going to mess it up, if you just say that's not helpful, it keeps telling you. But if you turn to that child and say, what do you want to tell me? Yes, I hear you. It would be really embarrassing. It would be a horrible thing, and I don't want that to happen. Thank you for telling me. The child gets quieter. And that's how I work with help. Part of how I help my clients is to think of their mental chatter not as a one way where you don't get any control over it, but you actually have a conversation and say, tell me about it. And then you say, thank you. And it's
I really
amazing
love
how
that.
much that
That
reduces.
that's a super, super cool technique and message. Thanks a lot for sharing.
Yeah, try that next time and see, because I did a talk for HBA, which is Healthcare Business Women's Association, and we had about 50 people. Well, I think we had 100 and something, but 50 people took part in we used Mentimeter for receiving votes. And when I introduced that idea and they thought about networking and the fear of networking, and we measured their anxiety, and then just taking those few seconds to say thank you internally, I think 49% said it went down, the anxiety reduced. And none of it went up. Nobody had an increase by saying thank you. So you got nothing to lose. And that was just in a few seconds. One tiny little talk where I'm not even with the person coaching them, but they're just trying to say thank you. So if you think, you talked about practice and how it takes a long time. Imagine if you practice communicating with yourself and just saying thank you and having gratitude and not feeling like you want to push this thing away, this fear, which you think is bad. And if you just say, this is here to warn me and thank it, change is a game changer.
Okay, I'll try it. I'll let you know how it works. I never tried that one, but it sounds completely reasonable. And as you said, nothing to lose there.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to have to start wrapping this up in a minute. It's always amazing how quickly time flies.
Well, if you're in good company, it does like that.
Exactly. So final words from you, Tamas. If you were talking directly to anyone listening this who is feeling anxious, any of those scientists who are staying silent, what would your words be to them, encouraging or to help them speak up?
I would suggest to them that as a fellow scientist, I understand that how much the science that they're doing means to them and how important they feel it is because they all feel it's very important. And I would say that just that is reason enough to share it
Mm-hmm.
with people, even if it's not changing the world. It can change your world to for the better if you share it. So I would suggest them to be bold and try to overcome those fears and go out of the comfort zone because there's a good chance that they'll like what they found there.
Fantastic. A great message. Get out of our comfort zone, say thank you to our fears, and you never know where it's going to take you and what
Yeah.
conversations you're going to have with people around the world.
See, like this one, how we met
Exactly.
each other.
Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to having more interactions with you through LinkedIn in the future.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Liz, for the invitation. I really enjoyed this talk. Have a good day.
And that's it for English Talk for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us, for listening in. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please do find that rating button, give us a rating, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Goodbye for now.